Hi, Jeff Ray here, President and CEO of Southland Regional Chamber. Continue our candidate conversation. Sit down this afternoon with Dan Schaetzle. Dan is a candidate for St. Joseph County Council District C. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Jeff.
Dan, we're thrilled to have you. We've been doing these discussions with candidates just to help our members get to know folks better. If folks haven't had a chance to meet Dan Schaetzle yet, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, my name is Dan Schaetzle. I am a teacher right now at Penn High School. I teach U.S. history to juniors. I have two small businesses that I also help run with my wife, Lavish by Lena Salon here in Granger on 23. And then I have a small property business as well. We've been married for 20 years now. We have two children, Bella and Adam. Bella is a junior at Penn and Adam is a freshman.
Great. Well, thank you, Dan. Appreciate the quick introduction. So, Dan, you have somewhere along the way here made a decision to run for county council. Talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to seek public office.
Yeah. Well, I've been involved in local politics for about 6 years now, working with different candidates and starting to really take in what happens in local government. And one of the things I noticed that on county council, I was not real pleased with the level of representation the Granger area had on the council. And so I started going to council meetings, just taking a look at what was happening there, getting reports from other people that were going. And I felt like that we could be represented better. So I decided to go ahead and primary our current councilman because I wanted to see Granger represented better on the council.
Great. Dan, talk a little about, so you mentioned Granger, you're running for District C. Give our viewers who aren't familiar with where District C is a general idea of where that district is.
Sure. District C starts at Douglas Road on the south, goes all the way up to the Michigan state line. And then from Elkhart County line, it goes over towards Ironwood and it kind of dodges in and out in that area. It includes all of Granger, a small portion of Mishawaka, and a small portion of South Bend.
Okay, great. Dan, let's talk about you a little bit more. So you mentioned to us that you're teaching these days.
Yes,
talk to us a little bit about the skill set that you bring to the table that you think would be beneficial. What are some of the reasons that, or some of the skills that you think would help transfer into being a good council person?
Absolutely. So I think that my history will tell you a lot more than just talking about teaching. My master's degree is in health administration, which is a business degree focused on the healthcare field. I ran two small hospitals in a previous career, one in Oklahoma, one in Ohio. And so through those experiences, I have had to do all of those things that a CEO does in a small organization. I had 120 FTEs at the hospital in Ohio. I was responsible for the profit and loss statement of each of the organizations, and also for the the welfare of the community. How well did we get along together as an organization? What was our culture like? And so I can bring those skills to the council for sure. All those things that I learned in my education and in those experiences. As a teacher, I think being a teacher allows you to not only work with teenagers, but you learn how to bring people into knowledge and into conversations that have different levels, different skill levels. And I think that helps in any situation where you're working with a large group of people, which as a councilman, you're not only working with the councilman, you're working with all those people that you represent, your constituents. So those skills help you to communicate the messages that need to be communicated, and also to bring their ideas into the room, which is what I want to do as a councilman, because I think that's what's been missing here in Granger. Most people didn't know who their councilman was. They don't know. They've never met their councilman. And that's probably been the case for a long time. I have knocked now on almost 6,000 doors, introducing myself to the people I'll be representing, because I think it's important that they know who represents them.
Great. Dan, let's shift a little bit to the issue side of things. Talk about things that are priorities for Dan Schaetzle if he's elected as councilperson.
Well, I think county council needs to get refocused on its core responsibilities. To me, those start with our county roads. I've had to have car repairs because of the county roads 2 springs in a row. And I think that's kind of indicative of the way a lot of our county roads are. We need to do a better job taking care of our county roads. That is one of the things that I will prioritize. We have contracted programs that we can do a better job with. I hear a lot of people in Granger complain about the leaf pickup program. I think we need to work with the vendor to make that program more consistent. And I noticed that when I was walking in the early spring, I started walking and hitting doors the last week of February. And I, some homes I'd walk by piles of leaves, and next to those frozen piles of leaves were the signs that said, leaf pickup service. We can do a better job there. And so we need to work with that vendor to do a better job. Those are definitely 2 of my priorities. And then one of my major priorities is to not just respect, but to help our county police officers in getting their pay up to a position where we're not losing them to South Bend, Mishawaka, Elkhart County, like we are now. That is an issue. I work at Penn, and we have county police officers in the building. I talk to them quite often, and they indicate that, they tell me, well, we lost another guy this week. We lost 2 more guys last week. And that is something we can fix by taking a look at not just the pay package, but I think as a councilman, and this is something I pledged to do, I am going to trumpet the great effort that our county police officers make. And I think that's something we need to do as leaders in the county. And I just don't hear that now at our council. And we need to hear that. So those are 3 major priorities for me. I think as move into the election cycle, we've started to see a little bit of movement also on a new park here in Granger, 110 acres off on Anderson Road. I think we can thank Carl Baxmeyer for part of that. As he's become commissioner, he's stepped up there and kind of tried to help get that ball rolling. We can also thank Ken Lindsay, who is our Harris Township trustee, who has really pushed the Parks Board, at least had the idea in front of them for a long time. And finally, we're starting to get some traction. So I would be a champion for getting that park done here in Granger. And then lastly, I would say I am a fiscal conservative. I believe that organizations should stay within their budget. I do that with my family, our home. We do that with our businesses. I believe the county should avoid deficit spending. I don't think we should have years where we're spending more than we're bringing in. And so that would be another goal that I would have as a county councilman.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Let's talk about just maybe building on that point for a second, because oftentimes the list of priorities is long, but the amount of budget to attack those priorities isn't quite as long. Sure. Talk just a second about how you balance the different priorities and do that, live within your means, but at the same time, handle some of those other things.
Okay. Well, I think that within our businesses, what we do is we look often at as incomes increase, of course, we can do more things, but we also sometimes have to look at what we're spending money on and eliminate peripheral expenses that do not apply to the core mission of the business. I think as a county council, we need to start doing that. I think there are areas where we can eliminate peripheral expenses that do not contribute to our core responsibilities, those things that I just mentioned, roads, leaf pickup program, taking care of our county police officers, those types of duties. We can eliminate some of these other expenses to help kind of bring more money into the core responsibilities. And then, of course, we do have a chunk of COVID money sitting there that we can address some issues with. And I will give our current council credit for the job they've done in bringing some new businesses to the area that are going to contribute mightily to our tax base. And specifically, I'm thinking about the car battery factory, if that should happen, which it's looking pretty good.
No, thank you, Dan. Dan, what do you think the biggest challenge facing St. Joe County is today?
Biggest challenge facing St. Joe County. Well, I think we can look at safety as our biggest challenge, just an immediate challenge, something that has become an issue over the course of the last couple of years. as a county, our violent crime rate, I think the statistic I saw was up 41% over the last 2 years. That is something we must address. And I think by supporting our county police officers better, by having less turnover in our county police officer force, we can start to address that issue. So I would say that if that's not number one, it's certainly one of the top priorities as a county.
Great. Dan, you have your business here, you raise your family here. Let's put on your sales hat for a second. If you were out talking to a stranger about why they should move their business or their family to St. Joseph County, what would you tell them?
Well, being a teacher at Penn High School, first thing I would probably say was, I know we have great public schools in the area.
Yep.
I could certainly tell them that. My wife and I, when we got married, I was a teacher in Korea and a small business owner in Korea. I had a business there as well for 7 years. I met my wife there and we came here, lived in Ohio. We lived in Oklahoma, and we eventually decided to come back here. And we have family here, and that certainly is a great pull. But, we talked about the schools and we said, we've got a couple of great schools that our kids could go to. We talked about economic opportunity. We have a great basis for job basis here. We have jobs that we can't get them filled. We just don't have the people. And I think that when I talk about Granger, I like to talk about the fact that it's an awesome mix of professionals, hardworking blue collar folks, teachers and parents who care about their kids. And we put it all together and we make just a great community. So I think the greatest asset we have is the people here. I live in Woods Edge here in Granger, and around me are a firefighter and a nurse and a gentleman who retired from one of the schools. And then there are a couple union plumbers down the street, and just a lot of hardworking folks who every day contribute to what we do here in this community. So I would point to the people, the education, the business opportunities. Those would be the first three things I would talk about.
Great. Dan, I'm going to ask you to keep your sales hat on there for a second. Okay. So voters have a choice on November 8th. Tell them why they should pick Dan Schaetzle for District C.
Right. Well, I think I've made the case pretty well going door to door that I have a vision for a St. Joe County that has, roads we can be proud of, contracted services that are fair, equitable to everyone, that we have a police force that is able to bring back a level of safety to our county that we're normally used to, and that we can develop beautiful parks here, a beautiful park here in Granger. At the same time, continue bringing in those types of businesses like the council has started to bring in. And so I think you vote for Dan Schaetzle because he can get those things done. And you vote for Dan Schaetzle because you've already met him and he's already given you an email address and a phone number where you're going to be able to talk to him as your councilman. You're going to have a councilman who you can reach out to whenever you have a problem with the county. And I think that's really what people want now. They want representatives that they can talk to, representatives that will listen to them. And that's who I am.
Great. He's Dan Schaetzle. He's a candidate for District C, St. Joseph County Council. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.